This video is on integrated 2, D-Day number 2 for chapter 5. So we want to find the coordinates of the x and the y intercepts. So to find the y-intercept, we're going to put 0 in for x. And when we do that, we end up getting this constant term, as our y-intercept. So our y-intercept is going to be 0, -8. When we're trying to find our x-intercept, we're going to put 0 in for the y. And so we're going to get 0 is equal to x squared minus 2x minus 8. I'm going to use the zero product property, so I'm going to factor. And I'm trying to figure out what multiplies to a -8 and adds to a -2. And that's going to be a -4 and a 2. So I'm going to get an x minus 4 and an x plus 2. So one x-intercept is 4. The other x-intercept is -2. So to write them as points, 4, 0 and -2, 0. And those are our x-intercepts. On number 2, so we want to figure out the height of a tree that our cat climbed in using a clinometer. And so we will have a tree. She is going to be standing, looking straight across through the clinometer and up. Now, that angle is 54 degrees. The distance from the tree is 25 feet. And the height of her eyes is 5.6. And we want to find this y. So I'm going to use trig. And I'm going to have opposite and adjacent. So I'm going to do tangent of 54 degrees is equal to y over 25. I am going to multiply both sides by 25. So I'm going to get 25 tangent of 54 degrees is equal to y. And then I'm going to add 5.6 onto that. So I'm going to have 25 tangent of 54 degrees. And then I'm going to add 5.6 for her eye height for my final answer. And let's get the calculator and use Desmos. And when you're using Desmos, you want to make sure you come here, click on the wrench and change it to degrees. And let's see, we get rid of that. So I'm going to be doing 25 tangent of 54 degrees. And then I'm going to add 5.6 onto that. And that is going to give me about 40 as our final answer. So about 40 feet. Number 3, we are going to be solving these by completing the square, and we want to leave it in exact form. So I am going to take the 13 to the other side. So I'm going to have a minus 13. I'm going to do a box. So I'm going to have an x squared. I'm going to split my -10x as a -5x and a -5x. So I need to have it always be the same. So I basically cut it in half. And then what's going to make this a perfect square is having that 25 there. So I'm going to add 25 here, and I'm going to add 25 here. Now this side here, this is the same as the quantity x minus 5 squared. One of them's area as a product, the other one's area as a sum. And then I add and I get a 12. I take the square root, And when I take the square root, I get a plus or minus 12, which I can clean up here in a second. And then I am going to be adding 5 onto it. Now to clean up this 12, this is a 4 and a 3. So this is going to be 5 plus or minus the square root of 4, which is 2 root 3. And that is our cleaned up answer. On B, I'm going to have my x squared here. I'm going to subtract my 2x, and I'm going to add the 10 to the other side. And I'm going to complete the square. So this is an x squared. I'm going to split my negative 2x as a negative x and a negative x. So this is an x minus 1, x minus 1. And negative 1 times negative 1 is a 1. So I'm going to add 1 here and add 1 here. And I'm going to get x minus 1 squared, because that is the same as this, is equal to 11. I'm going to take the square root of this side. I'm going to take the square root of the other side, get plus or minus the square root of 11. And I'm going to add 1. And that's our answer. These ones we're going to solve using zero product property. So I want 0 on one side, everything else on the other side. So I'm going to subtract 14x. And then I'm going to factor this. I'm trying to think of what multiplies to a negative 32 and adds to a negative 14. And that's going to be a negative 16 and a 2. So I'm going to have an x minus 16 and an x plus 2. And I'm going to get 16 as one answer and negative 2 as the other. On letter B, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to divide everything. Well, no, I cannot divide. So I'm looking at it thinking I could divide by 2, but I can't because of the 21. So for this one, I am going to do a box to diamond and factor this. So I have a 4x squared and a negative 18. And that is going to give me 4 times 18 is a negative 72. And it has to add to a 21x. And let's see, that is going to be a 1 and 72, which that's not going to work. 2 and 36, that doesn't work. 3 goes into 72. 24 times, so 3 and 24. And that's actually going to give me a 21. So I'm going to have a positive 24x and a negative 3x. So a 24x and a negative 3x. And so my outside is going to be, it can't be a 2 and a 2 because of the 3. So this is going to be a 4x and an x minus 3 plus 6. So I'm going to have 4x minus 3 times x plus 6 equals 0. I'm going to set each of these to 0. This one is going to be a positive 3/4. And this is a negative 6. On letter C, this is a difference of 2 squares. So this is going to be an x plus 9 and an x minus 9. And so I'm going to get a negative 9 for the first parenthesis and a positive 9 for the second. On number 5, I'm trying to write a quadratic. So I'm going to be looking for these x-intercepts. And so it's going to be y equal a, and the negative 1 comes from an x plus 1. My 5 comes from an x minus 5. And then I want to double check my stretch. So I'm going to put in a point. The one I circled, the y-intercept, is probably the easiest to put in. 0 is going to go in for x, and -5 is going to go in for y. So I'm going to get -5 is equal to a times 0 plus 1 times 0 minus 5. So I'm going to get -5 is equal to a times 1 times -5. So basically, -5 is equal to -5a. So a is equal to 1. So that means my equation is going to be y equal the quantity x plus 1 times x minus 5. Now, if I multiply that out, I can do a box, an area model, but I'm going to use a diamond, and I have the sides as opposed to the top and the bottom. And so that is going to multiply to a -5 and now to a -4. So this is going to be x squared minus 4x minus 4. But again, you can do a box or FOIL if you want to multiply it out that way. On this one, I have a -3 and a 1. So this is going to be y equal a times -3 is going to give me an x plus 3. The 1 is going to give me an x minus 1. And I want to find a point that I'm going to plug in here. And it looks like this one here is at 0, -3. So I'm going to put -3 in here, 0 in here. I get -3 is equal to a times 3 times -1. So it looks like I'm going to get another a of 1, which doesn't always happen. It's happening on these ones. So again, a is 1. And so my equation, y equal the quantity x plus 3 times x minus 1. And then if I was to multiply that out, again, I can do a box, or I can really think about these being the sides, 3 and a -5, 3 and a -1, sorry, that multiplies to -3 and adds to a 2. So I can also write this as x squared plus 2x minus 3. So these ones we're going to factor. So I can't factor something out of that. So I'm going to do a box. I'm going to have a 10k squared and a -2. And that's going to multiply to a -20k squared, has to add to a k. So that's going to be a 5k and a -4k. So 5k, -4k. And when I'm trying to find the outside, 10 could be a 10 and a 1 and a 5 or a 2. Because of that 4 and 5, this is going to be a 5. This is going to be a 2. This is going to be a -2. This is going to be a +1. So my factors are 5k minus 2, 2k plus 1. That's it. On B, this is a difference of 2 squares. So this is going to be an x plus 5 and an x minus 5. On C, I can factor a 3 from everything and an x. And I'm going to get an x squared plus 5x minus, and I'm going to end up having a 42 divided by 3, which is a -14 here. So this is 3x still. This I can factor. I'm really thinking of what multiplies to -14 and adds to a 5, and that's going to be a 7 and a -2. So I have times x plus 7 times x minus 2. And this is our answer. And for these ones, you want to make sure when we're doing these on our calculator that your calculator's in degrees. If I'm doing it from the 57 degrees, this is going to be opposite. This is going to be hypotenuse, so this is going to be sine. So I'm going to do sine of 57 degrees equals x over 10. I am going to multiply this side by 10 and this side by 10. So I'm going to have 10 sine of 57 degrees equals x. I'm going to put that into my calculator. And I'm going to make sure that it is in degrees. Okay. And so I'm going to go 10. Just trying to get it so I can see it. 10 sine of 57 degrees. And when I do that, I end up getting 8.3867. Let's see, let's get the two numbers after the decimal. So 8.39. So this is going to be 8.39 as my answer. On the next one, 11 degrees, this is going to be adjacent, and this is going to be hypotenuse, so that's going to be cosine. So I'm going to go cosine of 11 degrees is equal to 15 over y. I am going to multiply this side by y and this side by y. So I get y cosine of 11 degrees is equal to 15. And I'm going to divide by both sides by cosine of 11 degrees. So I'm going to have 15 divided by cosine of 11 degrees. And when I put that into my calculator, I end up getting a 15.28 as our answer. Now on C, I want to find the angle. And this angle, this is our hypotenuse to that angle, and this is our adjacent, so that's going to be cosine. I'm going to do cosine inverse of adjacent over hypotenuse. And I'm going to put that into my calculator. And when I do, I end up with 44.42 degrees. On letter D, from here, this is opposite, this is adjacent. So I'm going to do tan. So I'm going to do tan inverse of opposite over adjacent. And I'm going to put that into my calculator. So tan inverse of 15 over 12. And I end up with 51.34 degrees. Number 8, we're going to use quadratic formula. So my A is 1, my B is -3, and my C is -5. So when it says negative B, that means make my B opposite. So that means it's going to be a +3 plus or minus the square root of -3 squared. Notice I'm putting that -3 in parentheses and the square outside, minus 4 times my A, which is 1, and my C, which is -5, all over 2 times my A, which is 2. So I'm going to have 3 plus or minus the square root. And I am going to put that into my calculator. And what I'm doing is just doing what's underneath. And I end up with a 9 plus 29 plus 20, which is a 29. And that's my answer. So on last one, number 9, let's see. That's a 31. That's a 31 because those are vertical. Since these lines are parallel here, this one here and this one here are parallel, then when I have it cut this blue transversal, this angle and this angle are going to be the same. So this is going to be 31 degrees because of corresponding angles. Here, if I'm going all the way from here to here, those are going to add to 180. So I'm basically going to take 180 minus 31 minus 93, and that's going to give me my y. So let's see, 180 minus 31 minus 93, and I end up getting 56. So this is 56. So now if I was to take this whole thing here, it's going to be the same as this because we have this, whoops, this kind of orange or yellowish transversal. So this angle Z and these two angles together are going to add up to the same thing, and that's going to be corresponding. So I'm basically going to take 31 plus 56, and I end up with 87 degrees.